Hey,
Hello.
hello. You're watching film poems. We're not lying to you, but we can't
But we
tell you the
can't tell you the
truth.
truth.
Sorry, no
What does
can
that
do.
actually mean? What do you actually mean by that?
We said what it meant once in the bonus minutes, but why don't you tell the people?
It's too big. The truth is too big and too impossible to say. There's an ineffable component to anything that's actually true. Anything that's actually true is transcendentally true, and being that we are these souls trapped in this physical body, which is trapped in this hell world.
Oh my
Even
God.
if we can experience the transcendental, we're going to have a hard time saying it. But film has a way of giving us a chance.
And so does poetry.
And so does poetry. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're
Poetry
gonna
gives us a chance.
we're gonna try.
We're going to try.
Anyway,
So we're not lying to you,
Yeah, but
but.
I'm Chelsea Christopher.
And I'm Will Sanders.
And welcome to Film Church. So
Yeah, right. Welcome to Film Church.
we watch up to 6 films a month, and I write a poem for every one that we watch that we're gonna read in a little bit. And I already forgot the intro.
That's fine. The format goes as follows. We do watch up to 6 movies a month. It's basically four. We have 4 episodes a month, 1 episode a week. Our first episode of the month is an award-winning film. Our second episode of the month is a foreign film. Since we are ugly Americans and everyone else in the world is a foreigner, so that's why it's called foreign film, because they're foreigners.
They're foreign to us.
They're foreign to us, and we're Americans, so that's fine. And then our third episode is a double feature
Of our making.
of yeah, we choose what it is, and then our final episode of the month is just whatever we want, as a sort of wild card, so that maybe that helps us be less snooty, or we can do something fun. And then if there's a movie worth watching out in theaters, then we'll go ahead and watch that too.
Yeah, we've
But
talked about doing the bonus episode, and we haven't yet because there's nothing we
that we
consider
want to see, yeah, yeah.
that will add value to this podcast.
That's a really good way to put it. We've tried, we've looked.
We looked, we almost scheduled some things, but it just made us so sad and broke our little hearts that
Right.
we just thought it would break your heart too. So,
So to our subscribers out there, you know who you are. Bear with us as I'm sure someone in Hollywood's going to make a movie worth watching at some point.
yeah. The bonus episode, by the way, and all the other lovely goodies we have for you are only available at patreon.com/filmpoems. And one of the things we like sharing there is our bonus minutes, which we share for every single episode. It's where we go over time and keep talking for like another half hour about the ideas we were going on about already. And if you want to hear more, you should join us there. Yep.
Quite
So
right.
this week is award-winning week. I don't actually know the award that this one won. I should look that up.
We always do this. We find some
We looked it up beforehand when we picked it. We were like,
yeah.
okay,
Let's
it
see.
has to technically have won an award. I know it was nominated for a lot of awards. Did it win?
Taming of the Shrew, 1968.
67.
67?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it was made in 68 and released in 67.
No. Afraid not.
I don't know. Okay.
Did they tie? It says there was a tie. There's the David D. Donatello Award, and Richard Burton is said to be the winner of Best Foreign Actor, but then it also says here that he was tied with Peter O'Toole, and then also
For
says
for Lawrence of Arabia, maybe.
for The Night of the Generals,
Oh,
and then
okay.
and then Also, Best Foreign Actress for Elizabeth Taylor under that same award, but tied with Julie Christie for Dr. Zhivago. So
Oh, wow. Wow, 67 was a great year for movies. Holy crap.
it really was. So that's the one we're watching this week.
Yeah.
Before we get into the plot synopsis, I'm going to read my poem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Big stretch.
Big
Open,
stretch.
open your heart. Open your heart.
Open your heart. Okay. Why am I embarrassed about this one? Okay.
Because your heart's open.
Yeah, wow.
Your squishy, embarrassing little heart.
I'm about to surrender and submit to you all. Much like the lead in this film. Okay, here we go.
Let's see if this is our last
It's
episode.
controversial already, guys. Here we
We're
go.
gonna get canceled.
Whatever, if we have like 2 listeners, it's fine.
We love you, Luke.
Okay, here's the poem. I lay nude at night with moon kisses flickering at my back. It's still you with a silver face. I know this. I feel streaks of cool air dropping, making their place there, settling fingers in long spinning pools along the soft spots. I am reflective water, illuminated over the tufted pillow, hung there with the stable glee of knowing. I am yours now, I've been yours always, and I'll be yours again on the morrow, too. This is my everlasting white funeral. My arms splayed like a cross that curves below to hold the tufts of bed clouds and dream ether, so it may raise them up in luminescent glory we can sway under. I sink into black peace. What better truth is there than to be supple, movable flesh, lifted by you, guided by you, under stars and greater suns, each rising morn, the wish so glad to have me answer, I am nothing but this rippling love.
That's so beautiful.
Thanks. I think so too. I'm very proud of that one.
Makes me want to fuck.
Good. That's the idea. That's what we want.
Great. Good. Good stuff.
Okay.
Good stuff. You want to tell us like what in the film inspired that? Were there moments that you can connect between the
Yeah, at some
film and the
point during the film, I knew that the big speech at the end was coming. And I was starting to get a picture of what the speech was going to be about as I was watching the film. And I was like, what if I write a giant litany to God and offer to always be obedient and make that my poem? And I started writing that, and then I was like laying in bed, and it suddenly felt way more sensual and romantic and surrender as like a pleasurable thing. And so that's what I was thinking of when I wrote that one. That's all I really want to say about it.
That's so nice.
Thank you.
That's so nice.
So, Will, for those
Yes.
who don't know Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare, would you like to give a brief synopsis for them?
Sure. So, an elder man in Padua
Italy.
named Signor Baptista is having some trouble getting his daughters hitched. The younger daughter is the delight of the town, but he refuses to have her marry until his elder daughter, Kate, is married first. And Kate is a sort of raging girl boss, and is violent and horrid, and does such things as, beats her sister with a cane, breaks the furniture, and and so no one in the town will touch her. So Senor Baptista's strategy to have her married is to have a very large dowry. So there's some boys in the hood there who would like to compete for Bianca's hand.
Bianca's the younger
So
sister.
and Bianca's the younger sister. That's right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So so what they devise is to find a suitable match for Kate, and they hire the slovenly, horrific, pig-headed, yet dynamic and interesting Petruchio, and Petruchio is just trying to get paid. So 20,000 crowns and half the lands of Signor Baptista to the man who can tame and wed Kate. And so Petruchio goes on an adventure to do just that, and through a series of well, I suppose some would call it abuse. I think most would probably call it abuse. Chelsea's shaking
No.
her head. No. Chelsea's shaking her head. No. Basically, Petruchio shows Kate who's boss, and finally Kate relents, and in doing so, Petruchio and Kate actually fall in love. No longer is Petruchio just in it for the cash, and suddenly Kate. I don't know how would you say Kate changes? Where does she end up versus where she starts?
Well, so I guess let's get into the analysis. So, Kate, in the beginning, talks constantly about her anger towards the world and how, of all things living, men are the worst. But especially in this version with Elizabeth Taylor's incredible performance, you can see that what might actually be going on is that she's hurt and angry that her father favors her younger sister, Bianca, who is more obedient to her father, and feels like she's not worthy of her father's love for being different. And I think she projects this onto other men and just assumes that she'll never be seen as anything other than a shrew. And it makes her very bitter and angry and rebellious. And the minute she starts getting some positive affirmation from people and the shrew image starts to dissolve through being selected by a man who will actually marry her, she starts to kind of show a softer side, a side that's not so in conflict with the world. This is the main thing. I think this isn't, you can read this as like a gender dynamic thing, and that's definitely a part of it. But I really think at the heart of it, like if you were to remove all the gender components altogether, this is a woman who is angry and in conflict with the world because she's upset with her father and therefore upset with a part of herself. She's upset with herself. And as soon as she starts to feel worthy of the things that Bianca is worthy of, she begins to loosen her grip, calm down, and start to operate in harmony and connection with the world. And I think being married to a man and undergoing that process is just a metaphor or a symbol for that greater issue of just learning to be in harmony with the world. I don't
But it's
see
not just any man.
controversial about that. And yeah, no, it's not just any man. Petruchio, he's interesting because,
In the sense that he's fucking crazy.
well, I don't think he's that crazy. I mean, you described him as piggish and stuff, which I think is true, but he like relishes the opportunity to tame Kate.
The joie de vivre of this man.
He looks at her and he goes, "Have I not heard a lion roar before?" Like,
Right.
he wants to tame the lion. And over time, he starts to look at her with kind of like an awe and a fondness, even when she's not being
Right.
softer.
Do you remember from do you remember from The Little Prince when the fox says, "If you tame me, I'll end up taming you right back," or something?
Yeah, and that absolutely
Yeah.
happens. That's they're doing a kind of seduction together. Like Kate wants
Hmm.
to be worthy of love and acceptance and societal connection, but she doesn't want to do it in a way that makes her feel she wants to be able to do it with someone who she can go toe to toe with.
Yeah.
Her father she perceives as weak,
Which he is.
which he is. He's old, he's kind of feeble, he doesn't really put up any resistance that really
Right.
matters. He doesn't have
Right.
a wife anymore. And Petruchio shows up, and in their first encounter, the minute he greets her, he's very gentle with her at first. And if you see the look on Elizabeth Taylor's face when they first meet and he first says, "Good morrow, Kate," she
Ooh.
literally looks shocked that someone's speaking to her in such a gentle way while she's raging.
And they
And
just
then
fall in love like
and then
immediately.
as they
Immediately.
are like going through this fight before he convinces the father that they're going to get married, she's laughing. She's having
She's
fun.
kind of having a ball, yeah.
She found a playmate. She
Yeah, a
found
playmate.
a
Yeah.
fucking playmate. She
Yeah.
wanted someone who could handle her shit, that she'd be willing to be softer for. That's how I read it.
Is
And
that really what women want? Is the
oh
just like
man,
someone who can like just handle my insanity?
I mean, everyone's gonna have something else to say about this film because, everyone's like, well, there's no literal woman, it's just women identifying as women or, like feminine identifying. And I read a lot about,
Womb having persons.
yeah, and I read a lot about how this play is perceived and how it's been put up like on stage and in film in
Right.
recent years because I was
Yeah.
curious. I had a feeling I knew what I'd find, but I still wanted to know.
Right.
And everyone treats it as if it's ironic and
Right.
that she's doing it all with a wink or with tragic, like a dog being put down.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I don't think that's what's happening at all. And this
I
film
don't
is a
think so
really
either.
good example of why that's so. Um, I don't know about all women. I know I want that. I don't like I want someone not who I find worthy of my being of service to them. I want someone I
Yeah.
respect. Because
Right,
if you're
right, right.
going to be if we're going to be in the traditional scenario where you're the man and you lead the relationship, you have to be worthy of my following your lead. You have
Yeah.
to be a worthy leader.
Right.
And so I think that's important for women who still care about these traditional roles, which there is a huge community of women who do. And yeah, I think, but more importantly, I think that's for sure what Kate wants because that's
Mm.
what this film indicates. The night of her, or the day of her wedding, before she gets married, before Petruchio shows up, before she gets to the church, she undergoes this transformation before our very eyes. The whole time she's walking around the reception, we're just watching her face.
Hmm.
And she doesn't come out when her father calls her. She comes out when she's ready, so she
Hmm.
still has some of her strength. She
Hmm.
comes out looking utterly regal and defiant,
Whew.
but she still comes out. And then when people start looking at her and going, "Wow, oh my God, she actually like she's a woman."
Hmm.
Okay. And they all start being really nice to her.
Hmm.
She looks it's not like when someone gets a present or like when they've won. She looks like beatific and
Yeah.
shocked in like a holy way where
There's an
it's
inner
like,
glow.
yeah, she realizes I didn't even know this was possible for me. I thought this was impossible, and I'm
Mm.
actually capable of experiencing this thing. This feels
Hmm.
really good. This feels
Hmm.
right. And then you see her like kiss her sister, who a few scenes before she was literally trying to mar her face, you
With
know,
a
like
cane.
with a cane. Like, I think she actually longs for connection and feels so rejected by people and society for not always wanting to be obedient that it's made her very, very fucking angry. It's like when you're the kid in the
Yeah.
family who's the one who gets pissed off all the time, and people start treating you like you're the family bully, or they
Mm.
keep calling you the mean one or the angry
Mm-hmm.
one, or you have a
Mm-hmm.
temper, blah blah blah. You start to kind of live up to it, and you
That's
almost,
right.
and if you know, I've seen this with some of my own family members, like it starts to feel like you're irredeemable, and at some point you either completely give up and surrender to that, or you start to feel this sudden urge to prove them wrong and to be a little better. And then you
Mm.
become the gentler one, or the
Mm.
peacemaker, or the one
Mm.
who's quiet, or the one who doesn't start the fights anymore. Things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I really feel like that's what's going on with Kate.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is not a play. It is a play about gender dynamics and power dynamics and submission and domination, but it's also a play about conflict and harmony and what it takes
Yeah.
to be in connection with people. And like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a hard time connecting with people if you're acting like a fucking rabid animal and throwing shit at them and, you know, constantly pushing them aside. That's, I
Right.
mean, duh.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not being strong and independent. That's just being fucking angry.
Yeah, she's a wrathful, abusive person.
Yeah. But I really think this
Yeah.
film does a really beautiful job of sensitively portraying her, because there are so many
Mm-hmm.
beautiful moments with Elizabeth Taylor in silence, or when she's just sitting after she's done something wrathful. And you see her sometimes take pleasure in it. You sometimes see her almost seemingly like beating herself up, knowing that it was her behavior that kept her from having this nice thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's done it again. And when she's not around Petruchio, once they do get married, she's super kind and sweet to everybody else in the house.
Yeah.
And you can tell that she's being mean as an act. She's playing a game with
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I like one of my questions that I was going to ask you when you were talking about the synopsis and mentioning Petruchio is, does he really love her? But
Mm-hmm.
he continues the quote unquote taming after they've been married. He's got the dowry. He won. He got the thing he signed up for, and yet he still continues
Right.
on with the
Right.
seduction.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think people look at that scene. There's a scene where he wakes her up and tells her it's a certain time, and she's like, it's definitely not that time. And he's like, no, it is. And you're going to believe me when I say that. And he takes her out, and he tells her that the sun is the moon, and she agrees that it's the moon. And then he's like, no, it's the sun. And she's like, oh, well, then it's the sun. Whatever you say it is, that is what it is, and that's what it
Mm-hmm.
will be for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people see that and go, oh my God, it's gaslighting. Oh, this is so fucked up and abusive. And it's a game, y'all. It's a game. Because
Okay.
right beforehand, he says, no matter what I say or do, you cross me. And it takes her going along with the game for her to get his best side.
Yeah.
For because what she really wants from the world is the world's like warmth and generosity and love. And that's all anybody fucking wants from anybody or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so Petruchio would also like that. But she's too resistant and too she's got too many freaking walls up. So he
Mm-hmm.
has to literally play games with her to break them down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think? I've talked for a long time.
Your point about why doesn't he just let her go after he gets the money is I think a salient one. Like,
Or to stop
I mean,
the seduction altogether.
or to
and
stop the
just,
seduction altogether, and then
yeah.
thinking of the taming as a seduction.
Yeah.
as a form of seduction. I think they fall in love immediately. I mean, the way they play it,
Yeah.
you see it in their eyes. I mean, they're just magnetized to each other.
Yeah, it's the
The
playmate
minute they,
thing.
yeah,
They're like, oh, a worthy opponent.
a
Cool.
word, yeah, yeah. Finally a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
They're both violent. They're both obviously disagreeable, and they're both arrogant and they're haughty and they're insane. They're perfect for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way that Burton plays it because it seems that he's always surprised. He's always surprised that he's investing as much energy as he does into her.
Yeah, he surprises himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And he takes delight in it. I want to talk about other things too. And then I think we should talk about the final speech because
Yes.
that's
I
kind of the
want
most
I
important
want your
part.
opinion on the final speech, please.
But some other things I just want to point out before we get to that is I don't like my relationship to Shakespeare is probably different than yours. When I was in fifth and sixth grade, I started reading Shakespeare on my own. And I would bring Romeo and Juliet to sleepovers in case I got bored. and,
I'm cheesing over here. That's amazing.
and I remember in sixth grade, I read on my own. I read Romeo and Juliet, Midsummer Night's Dream, Hamlet, and Othello. Those were the first Shakespeare books I read. And then I didn't read Shakespeare
Good
again.
little selection.
Yeah, and then I didn't read Shakespeare again until high school in like English class and AP literature. And we read all the historical plays. We read Macbeth. But I don't think Taming of the Shrew was like necessary reading. I think it was like elective and I didn't choose it. So I knew the brushstrokes of the story, but I didn't know every little detail of how the taming happens or what is contained within the final speech.
Right.
But one of the things I do remember learning about Shakespeare, and I have a theater degree too. But one of the things I remember learning about Shakespeare is that comedy and tragedy have very different meanings to modern people than they did back then.
Right.
The way I understood it was that comedy is a play whose arc goes from disorder to order, and then vice versa for tragedy. Something comes together in comedy and something falls apart in tragedy.
I like that.
Yeah. And I think most people read comedy as like, oh, I'm supposed to be laughing all the time, and tragedy as in someone's going to die at the end or something. Which could be the case, but I think the real point is that there's disharmony and then harmony, like a marriage, like a union,
Right.
like
Right.
something positive. And then in a tragedy, there's harmony in the beginning that starts to crumble and just completely decimate by the end. Is that your understanding of comedy and tragedy?
That's one of the best definitions I've heard. Yeah.
That's
Really great.
how did you learn it? What's your relationships to
Well,
Shakespeare?
I mean, I think it just boils down to happy ending versus sad ending. And that's a little facile. But that, I think what you just said about the relationship between chaos and order and harmony and disharmony, that's right. That's right. And I especially like the tragedy definition because usually the tragedies involve kings or men of great power of some kind, who are tasked with setting things right, with making things orderly, and then they don't.
Yeah, and then they fucking fail.
They fail.
Yeah.
So
Horribly.
yeah. So I think it's just perfect the way you've encapsulated that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Now we can get into the speech. Okay. Again, this is the Elizabeth Taylor portrayal, but
Right.
I think what's really, hold on. I think what's really interesting about that speech, her delivery of the speech, Elizabeth Taylor's, is that she says it with no wink. And it's beaming with like all of this warmth and convincing love. And when she kneels before her husband, you can see the actual gratitude on her face. She doesn't have some like temptressy smirk on her face.
Right.
She's not clearly performing. It is before a group of people, but like it really feels almost like a declaration of love to her husband in this version. And I know most people, especially now, read that scene as like
now.
she is being ironic, or she's agreeing verbally but doesn't agree in her soul, or she's now officially like consigned to her prison sentence or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
And I just don't think it's as simple as that.
Neither do I.
Of course, submission, when it goes too far, can become like slavery and servitude.
Or if you're submitting to someone who's not worthy.
Yeah, especially if you're submitting to someone who's not worthy, it becomes slavery. And domination can easily become terrible, terrible abuse if you're a tyrant. And Petruchio's a lot of things, but I don't think he's a tyrant.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Can you want to just quickly give your definition or your usage of submission for the kids at home?
For the speech, you mean, or in general?
Well, I mean, we're talking about, submission. So do you want to give a definition of that so we know what we're talking about?
In this story,
Yeah.
submission is, so the final speech is Kate proclaiming the virtues of being obedient to your husband.
Right.
She says that a husband is thy lord, thy king, thy governor, thy life, thy sovereign. But then she also says he's one that cares for thee. And they really emphasize that line in this movie. So submission is, I think most people would see it as like you just do whatever your fucking man wants.
Right.
But it's more than that. If you I mean, people in the like divine feminine community would say like, oh, you should treat a man the way you treat your God. Not in worship, because obviously a relationship to God is more important, but with the same kind of respect. And I think people assume that that means you should just be that way with all men. But like I said, it has to be someone who's worthy of respect. And I think all men are worthy of respect, but in a romantic relationship, there's a whole deeper other level of respect that comes when you're with someone who's worthy of respect, where you drop all of your resistances. You become like putty because you have no walls up anymore. You're not protecting anything anymore. You're not living from some wound anymore. You're looking at your man, seeing him entirely as he is, as a human being, as a beautiful thing, as a positive thing. And you feel such a sense of awe and love for this being who cares for thee, who is willing to do painful labor and all of these things just for you. And it makes you kind of want to get on your knees. Makes you want to get down on your knees and serve daddy. I think being submissive really is to just surrender to love, to surrender to the love that life wants to give you in the form of this man.
Surrendering to love.
Yeah. Being willing to be humiliated and wrong and taught so that you may more deeply put aside your ego and yourself and all of your past pain and all of your judgments about men and to just fully surrender to this incredible force penetrating you from this man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's to allow yourself to be penetrated.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think submission
Right.
is. So that's my definition. And I think you can see that in this play. And I think most
For
people
sure.
are really concerned about gender norms and traditional
Mm-hmm.
ways of being. And look, you don't have to live a traditional life, but
Right.
plenty of people like me want to.
I want to. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't see any harm in it. And I mean, I can see how it can be harmful, but it is not harmful to me.
Right.
So, if anything, it's been the best experience I've ever had in my life of learning to submit to life, to
Mm.
submit to love, to submit to men,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to love you.
And like men in general, or just your man.
Mostly you.
Okay.
But learning to do that
Mostly.
with you has taught me to be more respectful towards men. And I already had loved men just in general, but so I'm more predisposed to doing this. But I don't put up a fight as much with men anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't argue with them or tell them they're wrong as much. I really give them the time to take the floor and tell me something and listen. And I find that I get way more out of that than trying to assert something.
Right.
And sometimes I will assert if I truly, truly believe in my gut that it is the right thing to do, like
Mm-hmm.
a holy calling,
Right.
that like you need to hear this thing I have to
And I
say.
was actually just about to say that is that I think that's that's what I had like a spiritual teacher who talked about how men really need to listen to women because by nature of having a womb, women have this connection to the void. Basically, they have this connection to the wellspring of all wisdom.
Yeah, and if I have a
Yeah.
huge intuitive pulse from my womb, I'm going to tell you about it,
Yeah,
whether
you're
you
gonna
want to
tell
hear
me.
about it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not going to, it's different here because it's a podcast. We're going to interrupt each other because we have to keep up like a certain flow.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
outside of here, I would listen to you and then offer whatever wisdom I have. But
Right.
I don't offer it out of frustration or anger or
Mm,
pain
mm,
or looking at you and thinking of all the men who have ever wronged me. Because I've dated some shitheads, okay? I've dated a lot of men who were not worthy of respect.
sure.
But I don't operate from that place. And
Right.
that I think is true submission, is to just
Right.
move away from the pain and be with the man. Just be
You
with the
know,
person.
you hear a lot of women on the internet and in the zeitgeist saying like he has to be masculine enough to put me in my feminine. What's your take on that, and how does that relate to the film?
There is some truth to that,
Mm.
but ultimately that is your responsibility. Like
Right.
being around a man who's in a different kind of polarity than you has an incredible biological chemical effect that changes your very cellular structure.
Okay.
But you can't rely solely on that man for that, because then you're just looking for a caretaker. And the whole point
Uh-huh.
with a man is, yes, symbolically, he can kind of represent like a father figure to you. And at times you will treat each other as if like the other person is your child. Romantic relationships are so fucking complex. You're simultaneously lovers, mother and father, children,
Right.
playmates, brother and sister, like you're
Right.
everything.
That's my big critique on the like the all the relation like all like the mainstream relationship advice that comes out of like relationship therapy and the academy and all these other things is that they try to boil it down, and the complexity is always lost.
Yeah, they're trying to make it black and white, hero and villain, and it's not like
Yeah,
that. And
it can't tolerate paradox, and it's like relationships are
no.
all about paradox because they're about polarity.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I want to say about your question is if you entirely rely on the man to quote unquote put you in your feminine, that means you are never on your own tapping into your own wellspring of wisdom. And the whole point that the divine feminine community is trying to make is you got to have a connection with that first.
I see.
That has to be your anchor. And everything else is just like bonus. But if you don't, if you're like, when you're away, like this is why it's okay when we don't always talk, or if you are busy working for days, like that's why we can tolerate that, because on those days, I get to reconnect with myself because I have that as an anchor to come back to all the time. And women need that. And if you don't have that, you're going to get really, really clingy and crazy with your man.
Right, which we're
Yeah.
not at all.
You have to find that masculine wisdom within yourself because it's
Right.
there too.
Do you think that Petruchio handles her a little too roughly, or just roughly enough, or
I
are
think,
there yeah, tell me.
sorry. I think based on how extremely she's acting, she's not just like some uptight broad. She's literally acting like an animal, like
Yeah,
literally. So
that's true.
he has to respond to that and work with that. So I think he does kind of have to go to extreme lengths because she's acting in such an extreme, overwrought way.
Yeah. Yeah, I
She
think
needs
so
a
too.
lot of help.
What's the lesson for men in this film?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, what do you think? You're a man. Or would you rather hear it from a
Well,
woman?
I asked you first,
All
but
right.
so I'll tell you my opinion if you'll go first.
All right. What's the
Yeah.
lesson for men?
What's the lesson for men?
I mostly was thinking about what's the lesson for women, but
Well, we
what's
can
the
do that
lesson for
too.
men?
Yeah. I mean, I think because like men are kind of dumb, not like low IQ, but just like it would be great if we had just a set of instructions or a playbook to follow, or like a template. And uh, I don't think that women like to be treated necessarily as if they're just something that can be dealt with in an instruction manual, and yet we penis having persons require some kind of starting off point, some kind of perspective, and maybe some of us listening out there need like a perspective shift. So what do you think the lesson is?
Well, part of why Petruchio is able to handle her so well is because he's experienced. He's clearly been around the block. And the other men are, I feel like the message for men must be very complex, because the other thing we see happening in the film is I thought it was really interesting in the very beginning with Lucenzio and Tanio, I think is his servant's name.
So just for context, Lucenzio is one of Bianca's suitors.
Yeah, and he's the one who ends up marrying her at the end.
Yes.
Everyone gets married at the end. So when they first enter the town, Tanio, the servant, sees the whore in the window and is
Yeah.
like, goo eyes
Ta,
over her,
ta.
totally goo eyes over her. But then when the educated man, Lucenzio, sees Bianca, who's in like Mary blue and a virginal white veil and is clearly like gentle and soft and never been touched. He's goo goo eyes over her. And the incredible thing about Petruchio is, even though he's probably, my guess, I'm assuming, is that he was a playboy in the past, because he's just so flamboyant. I mean,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and such an animal himself. I can't
I
imagine
love it.
him not being a playboy.
I love it. I love it. I'm like, I felt like I was looking in a mirror. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. But what he's able to do, I feel like he must understand both sides enough, because if he were just like Tanio, he wouldn't care that, you know, Kate is kind of acting like a crazed tavern wench. And if he were just like Lucenzio, he would only have eyes for someone like Bianca. He's able to see the entire whole person
Mm.
and the potential within there, the bud that's underneath all of this raging fire. Like, he can see that what she really needs is love and care and connection and acceptance. And that doesn't mean you put up with her stuff. That just means you lovingly challenge her on it and remind her that she's worthy of these things, but she also has to be fucking nice to you, because
Right.
why not? That's what everyone fucking wants. Why would you want to be with someone who's constantly hitting you and fighting you? It's to basically say, like, I come in peace. Hey, stop fucking hitting me. I'm here to marry you, honor you, love you, lay down your arms. There's no war here. And I think the lesson for men and for everyone is that there's no war here. Lay down your fucking arms. Just come to each other in love and presence and really see each other fully. And then there's an opportunity for something beautiful to happen. Like, you don't expect that Petruchio and Kate are actually going to fall in love, but they do. Because of that, they see through each other.
That's beautiful. So now that you've kind of like mentally worked it out, can we get like this is I'm doing
I know
this
you
with
need the instruction
I'm
manual.
doing this with my bros out here.
Yeah,
Can we get that in a very digestible cracker?
Yeah. Let me see if I
Yeah.
can. Don't look at a woman and just see an archetype. Don't go, oh, she's clearly a whore. She's clearly an angel. Because then you're going to possess an idea when you claim her. What you really want deep down, men, is to be loved for who you are, not just what you do. And you have to love her as a complete, full human being who is both of these things and everything and nothing all at once.
Right.
That's my advice.
That's good. That's good. When you say, I mean, I think even the terms like claiming a woman is very, very spicy.
I know. It's
No,
hot.
but it's hot.
hot.
It's what
what
like
you
y'all
want.
it's what y'all actually want. But can you kind of help the people kind of dial in to what is really meant by claim? Do you mean, I mean, because like I don't think women necessarily want to be thought of as property. At least not in like a legal sense.
This is just gonna get spicier and spicier.
It's a spicy movie. I don't know
Yeah.
why we chose this, but I think it's so relevant.
It's our birthday month, and I was like,
And it is our birthday month.
I was like, Will, pick a movie that is perfect for you and me for our birthday month and our love. And you
Taming
said
of the
Taming
fucking
of the
Shrew.
Shrew.
Taming of the Shrew.
And at first I was like, what is that supposed to mean?
If anyone's still listening, we're having a good time.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh yeah, totally.
Right. So claiming, what does claiming mean?
Okay. Okay, claiming. There is a dance that happens between a man and a woman in the seduction process. The woman has to suss out if you're going to be a worthy leader, if this is going to be a traditional masculine feminine polarity thing.
Right.
She has to suss out if you're going to be a sufficient leader, if you're worth following. So you have to prove that to her. And when you prove that to her and the love starts to bloom, she will do what I said earlier about surrender. She'll want to get on her knees for you. And when you feel such love and care and protection from another being like that, as a woman who likes traditional things, it makes you want to cast out all others and say, this is it. This is the banner under which I will follow for the rest of my days. That's what the result is when you claim a woman, is that she wants to be yours.
Yeah, right. It's not that she didn't want kids. She didn't want your kids.
That's it. And there was a really realistic moment right before Kate gave the speech. Petruchio, when they're going to Bianca's wedding party, asks Kate for a kiss outside, and that little bit of resistance, that last little bit of resistance that's still there, resists and only gives him a kiss on the nose and kind of fucks with him. And then you see this really interesting thing happen. He and Kate are sitting at the wedding party, and Kate is watching Bianca being adored by her new husband, and she keeps looking over like softly at Petruchio, and Petruchio looks back at her like beseechingly, but then goes back into his cup, kind of looking sullen, like she rejected him in a small way. It hurt him. It actually hurt him. Oh, because he's in love with her now, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a game anymore. He loves her, and he wants to show the world that she's his, and she resisted, and you can see the wheels turning in her head, and you can see that she's kind of feeling bad about it. She knows she did something wrong, and then you see her looking at children playing, and she smiles, and you just know, if you're a woman, you know she's thinking, damn, I wish I had kids. And she realizes she has to make up for the mistake she just made with her husband, and that's a few minutes later when the speech happens, which I think is really, in this rendition, a declaration of love, and we won't leave it out, the final transactional component, so that they can go make babies.
Right.
Okay, you want to claim me? I will let you claim me. I'll even let you claim me publicly. Now let's leave and go have some kids, because that's
right. Yeah.
And I thought that was really realistic, because there is a transactional part of it, and I think
absolutely.
I think people, when they get hung up on the submission domination part, they're thinking only of the transactional part. And that's why it sounds like slavery and domination, like evil domination. But again, it's so much more complex than that.
Totally.
So much deeper than that.
Totally.
And until you really experience it, you just don't know how good it is.
Right.
No idea. Right. I mean, I remember resisting in the beginning too. And you're not a fucking Petruchio, but a little bit.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're a little bit. But not. You didn't like gaslight me or attack me or like do anything crazy or brutal.
You're right. I really didn't gaslight you enough.
Hey, I'm here, aren't I? Let's not be too hasty, okay? But I mean, I still had so many judgments about men that were like keeping me from really trusting you and fully giving myself to you. And it's not just women who do this. I mean, like, you kind of have to surrender to me too, because you have to be willing to receive my wisdom when I offer it.
Right.
You have to decide that I'm going to be yours, and you have to be willing to sacrifice things in your own life to put me up in your priority list to care for me. Yeah.
So that's so true. Yeah.
it's
You
it's
rolled your eyes. You rolled your eyes.
not at you.
No, I know, not at me, but
I
what
just hate
like
how simple people make it. And like I really I know that what I'm saying sounds controversial, but there's no spice here. There's no anger here. Like all I feel is love and beauty
right.
and like beatific beauty when I talk about this stuff. Like my chest feels like it's glowing because it feels so good and
Mm-hmm.
right. And I don't mean good like pleasurable, I mean good like morally good. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Like it's
And
meaningful to you.
yes, and I
Yeah.
think many, many women have this experience, or once they do experience this, don't want to look back. And I think, the women who become career women and then years later are like, shit, I never had kids, and like feel really sad about that. Yeah, that's a biological response, but it's also because you didn't get to experience this. And maybe
Mm.
it's not for every woman. I don't know. The conversation around gender is more complicated than ever. And, there's not many people in support of this view. But
Our
it,
numbers are growing, though, I think.
yeah, and I mean, half the reason why I'm able to even have words for this is because I was able to find people who do. Like,
Hmm.
there are people who want traditional things still. We don't, I mean,
Do you think that non-traditional marriages work?
I don't know because I've never had one
Mm.
and I've never wanted one. I think it
Mm.
probably depends on the person. I
Mm.
question whether it authentically works for that person or if they're just convincing it themselves if it
Right.
works, but I really wouldn't know because I have yet to have that experience and I probably never will.
Yeah, right.
So, can't really
Right.
say. But my hunch is that maybe not.
Maybe not. That's kind of my hunch too. There have been studies that have been published that they query married couples, and the happier ones are the ones that are in more what are considered traditional gender normative roles.
Hmm.
But they didn't have a good sense of why that was. I mean, we're talking about energetics and authenticity and polarity, and you can't really scientifically
Yeah,
assess that.
it's so feeling based.
Right.
It's a feeling.
Right.
And I think equality, like legal equality, is important,
Yeah.
but to lose the polarity, that's how we have society. It keeps
Hmm.
things in a certain harmony. And, like, I mean, it doesn't mean like I don't get to have things for myself or things that matter to me or
Hmm.
like I'm still an artist, you know?
Right.
I have my
Right.
own projects and my own half of my career, but it's not everything. It's just part of
Hmm.
my life.
Hmm.
And nothing about our relationship squanders that.
Hmm.
When kids enter the picture, that might complicate it.
Right.
It surely will. But I mean, to be in polarity doesn't mean I'm going to give up literally everything because I don't
Mm.
have to. And again, this is why
Hmm.
it's so important for women to have that connection with themselves first because you need something to come back to and you need something that's outside of the relationship. As a woman, you need secrets. You need a
Hmm.
whole inner world that's just
Hmm.
yours. You need a
Hmm.
relationship with God, life, whatever you want to call it. That's just you and them. Just you
Hmm.
and that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I remember once you said something like your greatest adversary can be your lover.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that means like they can abuse you and be evil. I think it means like the person who will transform you the most. Even when you put up a fight and hate it and it feels awful and humiliating and terrible, is your lover.
Definitely. Definitely. And in a lot of the romantic comedies, the romantic comedy is a film. the adversary versus the protagonist. Like the antagonist is usually the lover, is the other lover.
Yeah, there's lots of movies like that. What before we move on to other things about this film, what is your advice to women? I gave advice to men.
Oh God bless. What is my advice? What is my advice to women?
What's the lesson you think
Oh
women
my
should take
God.
away?
What's the lesson that women should take away from the Taming of the Shrew?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess I set myself up for this when I asked you what the lesson was.
You don't have to answer.
Well, no, I'm not going to shirk away from the question. But so that we don't have dead air, why don't you extemporaneously discuss the film while I think about it for 20 to 30 seconds here?
Well, it's directed by what's his fucking name? I forgot to say who it was directed by. The film is directed by Franco Zeffirelli, who I found out is a descendant of Da Vinci, which is interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, he's also been knighted. And he also did the 1968 Romeo and Juliet, which is very famous. He did the Mel Gibson Hamlet in the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Okay.
he did this
Interesting.
amazing series that I've always wanted to see from like 1977 with like Anne Bancroft, Anthony Quinn, like tons and tons and tons and tons of people. Beautiful people, beautiful actors, called Jesus of Nazareth. It's very, very
Oh,
famous.
yeah, I want to see that. Sounds
Yeah, I
good.
want to see that too. It's really the only other thing I was going to get into. You got your thoughts?
I guess if I had advice for women, it would be to avoid weak men.
And how would you define a weak man?
Well, therein lies the rub, right? Because I think when you're like a young woman, it's easy to mistake crazy psychopaths for, like it's the bad boy thing, right? The reason that you like bad boys is actually a good reason, because they're demonstrating behaviors that a properly masculine father figure would display up to a point, right? Learn how to identify psychopathic behavior, right? Learn how to read body language.
Feminine discernment.
Yeah.
We're the selectors of evolution. You have to have
Right.
fine discernment.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But certainly avoid weak men. I mean, the crazy bad boy psychopaths are usually quite weak at the end of the day.
In other ways, yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
usually lack grit. They usually aren't able to have long-term goals, right? But then also like avoid men that like put you too much on a pedestal.
Yeah.
That worship the ground that you walk on and all that. Avoid men that are afraid to tell you to shut up. I mean, you know what I mean? Avoid men that are afraid to argue with you, right?
Why?
Well, because if someone's afraid to argue with you, then they're afraid to tell you the truth, which means they don't respect you.
Yeah. It's about respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they're not going to respect you, they're not going to make a good long-term partner.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like a lot of women, I think, bristle when they hear the following phrase: "Women are ... dot dot dot." Like any phrase that starts off, if a man is speaking, women are dot dot dot. If the phrase, sentence, whatever starts with those two words, I mean, it's pretty common that your average woman there is going to lose her fucking mind.
Well, because it's like you said, men need like simple instruction manuals, and women feel like they're full of complex, infinite worlds.
Right,
So
right.
To be quote unquote reduced to a sentence feels like an insult to our very being.
That's right.
But this is why the respect thing is so important, because if you respect me, you do see my entire being.
And it's also a bias that y'all have too, because it's like just because you can exist in the world of the void and the infinite unmanifested world, you don't tend to spend a lot of time in the manifested world.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so you're often that can translate to being less objective. But I have just found that I'm more successful as a male lover, particularly with you. When I just let women be women.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of guys out there are kind of assuming that women operate like men.
Yeah, and women think that men should operate like a woman.
Right, it's just absurd.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
There's a huge gulf between us.
Yeah.
And the only way that we're going to get close and truly intimate is if we acknowledge that gulf.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to try to be the same thing. We don't have to identify with each other in order to be intimate.
No, there's tons of things I don't understand about you, but that I love and admire anyway. Because of the fact that it's different from me. There's there's that great quote from is it the journal, the diary of Adam and Eve from
Mark Twain?
From Mark Twain. It's one of the last lines. Eve says something like, I love him. Maybe it's because he's a man. Maybe it's because he's different from me. Maybe it's because he's mine. And I think that really sums it up. It's like part of the awe you're able to feel for a man or a woman is because you feel that gulf, like that sacred gulf. I feel how different you are from me, and there are things about you that I cannot possibly fathom, and that alone makes me awe-inspired by you.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like, not only can you not fathom it, but you recognize it in you, and you can't understand it. That's the weird thing about it.
Yes, I feel it inside. I know I possess it in some way, but I don't know how to touch it or understand it more deeply because it's not the dominant thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why polarity is important, is because I get to learn more about this part of myself through being around you, if you are in that. And vice versa. When you were talking about weak men, it reminded me of the YouTube channel Home Math.
I was thinking about Home Math when I watched this movie.
If you guys haven't looked up Home Math, go look up
dude, shout out to Home Math.
To the zones chart, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about what we're talking about.
It's pretty much it.
And how men select women and how women select men. Mm-hmm. And all that bad boy means is that you're attractive. And you're attractive because you're giving off stereotypically masculine things. Like, you are dominant, you are capable, you are a leader in the world, you are self-sufficient, you take good care of yourself, you kind of have like a dark side because you're not afraid to fuck a guy up. And then the other end is security, where you're loyal, you provide, you know, believe in me, things like that. And if you're more one than the other, then you're gonna be in my friend zone, or you're gonna be the bad boy I fucked that one time and totally regret.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So look into that, men, if you're trying to figure out what the hell we're talking about.
I've never known of a woman ever who was ever attracted to a man who did not have some relationship with his dark side.
Yeah,
Ever.
that's like the only kind of guy I've been attracted to.
Right.
I
Right.
tried dating
Right.
like
I think
a really, really good guy like a few times, and I hated it.
ain't gonna work. Why did
And
you hate? What did you hate? What did you hate about it? What did you hate about it?
I was bored.
And I hear that. I hear that from other women.
And it didn't make me feel safe. I didn't feel safe.
You didn't feel safe. And why
When
didn't
you're,
you feel safe?
because I don't trust him to defend me or be successful at defending me.
Uh-huh. Right.
And that's just a primal fucking biological thing.
Right.
Like,
I don't think you have to make an excuse for
no,
it.
I'm
I
not
mean,
making an excuse. I'm just saying it's literally your body, y'all.
or
Like,
ask forgiveness for it either. But it's
no,
just
no,
like,
no.
no, it's a good thing, is what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's already inbuilt.
I like that's why I don't get mad when women shit test me unless they're my boss, and then that's weird. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like weird when if I have like a female boss and she's obviously attracted to me, and then she starts shit testing me and she doesn't even know that she's doing it. Like that's weird, but other than that, that's why I don't get angry with women for like shit testing me, because like some guys are like, oh, she shit tested me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, so
It's part of the initiation of proving
Yeah.
you're the worthy leader.
yeah,
Rise to the challenge.
she's
Like,
doing you a favor, bro. Like
Yeah.
like
in a way,
if
that's what Kate is doing with Petruchio, is being
the
like,
whole time.
yeah, she's being like, can you fucking handle this? You gonna defend me? Me?
Right. She clearly doesn't need help defending herself.
Yeah. So she's shit testing him the whole damn movie.
That's kind of why I think the in I guess it's kind of near the end of Act 2, going into Act 3, when they leave Padua after the marriage, and
Oh yeah.
and she's in the rain, and it's like, oh look, all of your ill temper and rudeness and horror didn't help you from surviving the elements, did it?
Yeah. And when she reaches out a hand for him, he's like, no, you clearly got this, because that's
Yeah.
what you always say, right? So go ahead,
Right.
help yourself.
That's why I think this is like, oh god, that's why it's like this play or film is so relevant, because so many women complain about the death of chivalry.
Stop fighting the fucking man, and
Stop fighting
you'll
him.
get it.
Then you'll get it.
And
Yeah.
there's a point in that scene that you're talking about, right before they go out into the elements. She leaves the wedding party with him, and she's on horseback. And there's a point where she's literally standing there on the horse, and Petruchio's very far ahead. And
It's a donkey.
A donkey, fine, I forgot.
He puts her on a donkey.
Well, she's put on the mule.
So funny.
She's acting like an ass, so...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then behind her is the wedding party and her father. And she literally gets a moment of total independence where she can choose. Am I going to go with Petruchio, or am I going to go back home? And she chooses to go with Petruchio.
Absolutely.
This is part
Absolutely.
of growing up as a woman. You have to leave father back home and embrace the new father figure. It doesn't mean Petruchio is going to literally be her father, but this is her new provider and protector.
Well, I mean, let's just play devil's advocate for a moment. So why can't she leave father and just go be on her own?
She could, but then we run into a situation where I was talking about earlier, where she runs the risk of becoming a career woman who doesn't end up having kids and is really, really sad about it later and feels like she fucked up her life. This might be why. Now, that doesn't have to be her fate, but it's so clear for this particular kind of woman that she does want this. She does like this. That doesn't mean necessarily that every woman does, though even that I'm not sure about. I have suspicions about that. But at least for this kind of woman, if you can relate to Kate at all, then you might be a woman who is looking for some male leadership. You must also have your own strong inner masculine and your own connection to yourself. But maybe you'd like some dick. Go get it. Maybe you'd like some literal dick instead of metaphorical dick.
Right, right. That's funny.
Yeah. Also, other random, not so random thing. This was Elizabeth Taylor's first time doing Shakespeare. How do you think she
That's
did?
10 out of 10. 10 out
Yeah.
of 10.
Yeah, I thought she was really good. And you mentioned that she was studying it like crazy while she was filming and ended up reshooting her very first day of shooting because she realized as she was shooting
Yeah.
the other days that she had gotten better.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
It's such a professional move.
She was a consummate professional. She
Yeah.
was very, very, very good at doing her job, even
Yeah.
though she lived a very like bawdy lifestyle.
7 marriages.
Well, I mean, yes, but that was because she didn't believe in sex until marriage, and many of those marriages were just failed marriages before Richard or before Mike Todd, who she said were the two loves of her life. And her and Richard got married, divorced, and remarried, so he's two of those marriages.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I suppose it's very smart of her to not believe in sex before marriage, since she was the most beautiful woman in the world.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard Burton said that her breasts were apocalyptic.
I'm so happy right now.
They really loved each other, and they were very much like a Kate and Petruchio in real life because
Yeah.
they flaunted their love. They made tons of money off of their love. He would write articles about her all the time and publish them in magazines. Like they just fucking adored each other.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
and
love it.
I think that's amazing. They also fought a lot and were raging alcoholics, but
Yeah,
they
alcoholism will do that to you.
but they would also go on interviews and say things like, I think arguing is like a really great exercise in marital togetherness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have
And
to agree.
and she was always like that. When she was with Mike Todd, she would have fake arguments with him in public because it was fun. That's how they would seduce each other.
Oh my God, we gotta do that.
Yeah, I'd be down. Shut up!
Shut your fucking little mouth.
No, you shut your mouth. You're always just stop. Just stop.
You're embarrassing me. Look at this.
Oh
Look
no,
what you're
I'm
doing.
kidding.
Look
Oh
what you're
no.
doing. You're
Oh
embarrassing
no.
me.
Oh no.
Maybe we're just crazy. Maybe that's what's going on. Is that actually everyone should stop listening to our advice, be normal, and let the madcaps do their own
You
thing.
know what? Maybe other people think it's unhealthy, but to us, this is healthy.
We're gonna get real weird with it.
And we don't care what you think.
Yeah. I think maybe we just figured out that this is about us and not about anything else.
Well, I mean, that's why we picked this film. I asked you to pick
Yeah.
a film for us on our birthday
We're like,
month.
fucking
yeah.
Taming of the Shrew.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. Go watch it. It's so fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. I have more that I would like to talk about with it, but perhaps we should save that.
Let's charge people money for that.
Now it's time to put the rest behind a paywall. Come join
Yeah.
us on Patreon
Yeah.
to break
We
the
would
wall down.
love you. It's not even an investment really. What is it?
It's $5.
It's
a month.
$5.
You
Yeah.
pay that like 10, 20, 30 times over, not even. You pay like $8 for a fucking deadly latte with syrup death in it every
And
fucking day.
it's if you're getting real milk, it's got pus in it, and if you're getting fake milk, it's got seed oils. So
You're fucked
it's
either
poison.
way.
You're fucked either way.
So unfuck yourself.
So pay the $5
and do something good for yourself and pay $5 to get some more brain food.
Come listen to what we really think.
Yeah, we say a lot of way more controversial shit in the bonus minutes.
That's right. That's right.
It gets more unhinged in the bonus minutes.
We really hold back for the free shit, but
yeah. You want to hear us let it rip? Pay $5.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank y'all for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next week is...
Oh, yes. Next week is...
City of God.
City of God, the 2002... Is it Brazilian film?
It is indeed.
Yeah. Ooh, it looks rough. It looks really rough. It's going to be a big one. So please come join us next week. You can listen here on YouTube. You can listen on Spotify. And we'll be on more platforms very soon.
Very good.
Yeah. All right.
Ciao.
Y'all. Love you. Bye.